Alrighty, hello there, folks. How you doing? Okay, so I'm going live this morning. Here's the reason why. Is because I have to go into work a little bit late, so I ended up sitting and watching another episode of the Innocence Files on Netflix. Whoops.
Because I have to go into work a little bit late, so I ended up sitting and watching another episode of the Innocence.
So because I have to go in late, I was watching another episode. So I've gotten up to episode 7 now. There's about there's about 15 minutes left in it. It's a really good part in episode 7 where it's talking about an elected, somebody that was elected in Philadelphia there, the guy that was elected there that kind of started instituting criminal justice reform there. But before we get into that, first of all, you got to go to the episodes before. So I covered last night, I was talking about episodes 1 and 2, which dealt with the case of the two little girls, Courtney and Christina, these two little girls that had been abducted, raped, and all that sort of stuff. And it had been believed that they had bite marks and all that. So I covered that last night. So the third episode goes into another bite mark case and kind of does a wrap up on the two cases from the first two episodes, which would be Kennedy Brewer and Levon Brooks. So we end up seeing that Levon Brooks in episode 3 ends up losing his battle with cancer, but he got to live, he got to have a pretty nice life. He seemed pretty happy before he passed. He had some property and he had a bunch of chickens and turkeys and things like that. And he seemed fairly content. So I do feel good about that for Levon Brooks, after being wrongfully, incarcerated, convicted for as long as he was. So that's what episode 3 does. It kind of wraps up, as I said, the first two. It also introduces another guy who was convicted on bite mark evidence, who eventually got, the Innocence Project, and eventually got him out. And he ended up becoming a huge advocate and trying to get legislation passed to prevent this kind of bite mark evidence and from being as strongly believed and all those things. So hello, everybody. Hi, Mandy. Hi, Stian. Hello, William. Hello, Sharon. Hi, everybody. Hello, Michelle. So as we get into, so that was episode 3 where it's doing all that, like I said, tying up what happened in episodes 1 and 2 with Kennedy Brewer and Levon Brooks, and also introducing this third case of a bite mark thing, so it kind of wraps up the bite mark stuff. So by then you're getting into episode 4. And when you're getting into episode 4, you're in the case, it's a case where it's a tragic case. It truly is. And before I even start, I want to say this show shows how investigators get it wrong. And it's not necessarily that they walk in maliciously meaning to. It's not as if it's like always some conscious desire of the investigators coming in and wanting to wrongfully convict somebody. It's usually more of a desperation, to be honest, that the investigators are resorting to desperation instead of actual kind of police work, and doing their job, thoroughly. They'll sometimes take these shortcuts, and I get it, because sometimes they're in busy cities, like Philadelphia was one I was just mentioning in the beginning of this. So, all right. So when you get into the murder of Donald Sarpy and the trial of Frankie Carillo, it's a very tragic thing. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible of the way that this kid just got railroaded. And it's so obvious that this Detective Ditch or whatever was, I'm not Detective Ditch. Detective Ditch was in I'm sorry, it was Detective Ditch, and Detective Ditch was actually telling the suspect, the guy who made the identification the night of the crime. He was taking him through like the gang book for the gang, the rival gang, to the area where the shooting took place, because it was terrible. It actually wasn't a gang member shooting. It was some guys rolled by in a car who were probably gang members and took some shot at some kids and stuff out in front of their house, and ended up hitting one of the kids' dads and killed him. And the guy died. And I mean, no gang affiliation. He was just a dad who had come out to because the kid, I guess the boys were getting a little loud and rowdy or something, and so he had come out to talk to him and calm him down or whatever. But in the midst of that, this car came by and then fired a shot, and two shots actually, and one of them killed the father. So one of these boys that was there gets taken into the station, and so Ditch is flipping through this book going, oh, is it any of these? And the guy he points to two different guys, and the detective goes, no, it can't be him. No, he's in jail. No, it can't be him. He's not, whatever. He had some reason why the first two people that the kid picked wouldn't work. And then keeps flipping through the book and keep flipping through the book. And eventually the kid points to Frankie Carillo. And eventually then Ditch, the investigator, goes, oh, yeah, it makes sense that he could have done it because he's probably trying to make his stripes. Kid didn't know what he's picking. He picked two other guys and the cop refused him. He was just happy to finally have picked one the cop was willing to accept because he wanted out of there. This is how it happens. And it's like I said, I hope the show really gets going. I hope the show really, really gets, I hope it goes into multiple seasons. And I hope the Innocence Project, Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, are really, really serious and keep this show going, because this is, I think, this is a way for people to be able to see in a very plain way of how things go wrong in the criminal justice system, and that these problems can be fixed without just letting everybody go. You know what I mean? It's like we can look at where these things are going wrong in the justice system and make adjustments to prevent those things from happening, and create better justice and limit wrongful convictions, and make the evidence more solid, so that guys that are actually guilty, or people that are actually guilty, don't end up getting away on a technicality because investigators didn't want to follow standard operating procedure or didn't want to do their job right. There's a lot of reasons why, but this show, I think, is going to be brilliant for that. And I as I said, I do hope it goes into multiple seasons. All right, let's see what's going on over here in the chat. Well, I'll tell you what, Neo Young Photos, it's very, very interesting. I have been watching it and have just been glued to it. It's just fascinating to watch how these things happen and where these problems creep in, and to see it. It's amazing. It's been very, very interesting watch. So although I feel for you, I don't think you'll be too unhappy about it. Yeah. And eventually the way that Frankie Carillo gets off is because he starts talking to people, and he's doing he's doing what he can. He it's just bizarre, but he eventually talks to the son of the father that was killed. He talks to the guy that, basically the victim. He talks to the victim's son, Frankie Carillo does, and actually, I'm sorry, not Frankie doesn't. There's this other this other guy who gave testimony. There's so much about it. This other guy who had knowledge of the crime and said it wasn't Frankie, and the judge wouldn't even allow this guy's testimony in, type of thing, or he came off as thuggish to the jury and nobody believed him. Eventually, this guy contacts the victim's son and says, "Listen, Frankie Carillo didn't have anything to do with it," and all that sort of stuff. I mean, eventually the victim's son ends up calling the district attorney and telling her, "Look, I didn't really see the kid. I didn't really see who it was in the car that night. Because when it came down to it, when investigations had been done, there was no way anybody could have seen who would have been in that car. It would have been impossible for anybody to say that they saw a face." And that was what kind of was becoming clear. So eventually that kid, he's not a kid anymore at this point, but that son of the victim ends up calling the prosecuting attorney in the case and tells her, "Look, I don't think it was Frankie. I didn't get a good look at him. The testimony was, my testimony was, I didn't actually see it. I just said Frankie because of, the original kid who pointed at two other guys first and then eventually pointed at Frankie. He was basically telling the prosecutor, I only said Frankie because of blah blah blah, whoever the kid that pointed at Frankie in the what's it called, mugshot book, right?" So at that point, the prosecutor gets on board, goes into court, and says, "Sorry, I think we got it wrong," and blah 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 blah. And so they were able to correct it, and Frankie was able to get out, and and all that sort of stuff. So, and I mean, Frankie was a good kid. I mean, when you hear about his upbringing, I mean, he talks about how their family unit was really strong because their mom had died, their dad was the only one left. They were so poor that they didn't even have a family car. Like they all rode buses, and like their dad rode the bus to work every day. Like they were that poor, but being that poor and stuff, they had such a close knit and tight family unit, and his dad ended up dying while he was in prison, and that's another one. That's another recurring theme in this, because I was just watching, episode 7, and we're dealing with the same thing with this one, where this guy was wrongfully imprisoned and wrongfully convicted. I believe he spent 28 years in, and during that time, his mom died, and he was very, very close to his mom. He talked to her every day, pretty much. So, wrongful convictions. When wrongful convictions happen, and this is what prosecutors and a lot of these people don't want to acknowledge. When wrongful convictions happen, the amount of people that are hurt is just increased fivefold, in my opinion. You're number one, have the victim's family who walks away from it thinking that the bad guy has been caught in a wrongful conviction. And they walk away happy, not realizing they may still be in danger, whatever, because the person who committed the crime isn't still at large. Could be committing more crimes, making more victims. Then you have the victim himself, herself, and their family, and what happens to them because of a wrongful conviction, and the communities and families that are destroyed on that side. Then you also have the community at large, okay, who ends up in the end when wrongful convictions get sorted out in the end, it ends up costing the people a lot of money. Even if there's no settlement for the wrongfully convicted, it ends up costing the public a buttload of money, because you're paying for the prosecution to fight tooth and nail in the adversarial process in court, and all that is, government money, state money, depending on the court. It's all taxpayer money being spent. You understand the amount of reasons why a wrongful conviction and how bad it is and why it's so terrible? These are the reasons why. It's terrible stuff. And the Innocence Project is putting out the data to help our system to reevaluate and start trying to make more effective decisions, better decisions to make for better justice. How long is it going to take for that to kick in? I don't know. But here it is in a TV show, making it very plain for people to see. And I think everybody should watch this TV show. Yeah. And that's the other thing. I'm in episode 7, and the DA in that case with the Trester Holman case. Oh, that guy. That guy is something else. He had no interest in justice. Justice wasn't something he cared about. It wasn't something he was interested in. He just wanted the convictions to keep ticking. Tick, 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 tick. It was all about his own grandeur. Justice was a extreme afterthought for that guy. Terrible, terrible. Absolutely. Corruption follows man because it's in our DNA. Yeah, well, we have the ability for good and we have the ability for evil. That's why I say man is more of, concept of good and evil is, I don't know, somewhat outdated. We're all in some kind of area of gray nowadays. We're equally despicable and equally divine, almost in equal measures. And I know what you mean there, Sharon. Truth doesn't give opinions; it gives facts. It's only in recent years people are beginning to question the justice system, and that's good, and it's going to continue to happen because of documentaries like Making a Murderer, because of documentaries like The Staircase, because of shows like The Confession Tapes, because of the other Netflix series Exhibit A, because of When They See Us about the exonerated Central Park Five. All these different shows that are opening people's eyes and people are looking at it going, oh, I thought those guys were so guilty, but I didn't know that. And that's what these things are doing. They're opening people's eyes, to scratch the surface a little bit. Take a little deeper look. Don't just listen to what the DA and everybody's saying. Because what we're seeing, I'm not saying every DA, but what we're seeing from a great deal of district attorneys nowadays is it's not about justice, it's about seeking convictions. Right or wrong, seeking convictions. The length of time it takes wrongful convictions to get sorted out is disgraceful. You're absolutely right. What makes it worse is a lot of them have no conscience when they convict the wrong people. Yeah, and I can tell you, folks, for Mammoth-on coming up next weekend, folks, that I have somebody who is going to talk, who's going to be talking about that exact issue, about being in law enforcement or investigations and things like that, and having a conscience. So you guys can be looking forward to that. It's going to be pretty much in my first segment. So within the first 45 minutes of my first segment, I'm going to have a gentleman who some of you may know as Steve Moore. And you're going to be able to hear him talk about that exact topic about it's important for investigators and DAs and those sort of people to have a conscience and to worry about whether or not they're getting it right. So, well, you guys can look forward to that. Let's see. I am about to graduate with BS and CJ. All of these wrongful conviction cases have charged my whole opinion since the Avery case and learning how much injustice there really is. Yeah, and like I said, and there's other brilliant documentaries out there besides Making a Murderer that are, illustrating it as well. And like I said, for anybody out there who hasn't gone and checked out The Staircase, whether you believe Michael Peterson did it or not, you got to have issues with the conduct in the investigation, because if nothing else, when investigations don't happen correctly and when there's shady things happening, it only creates a question as to whether or not they got it right. That's when it comes down to it. If there's no other reason for wanting to make sure to get it right, that should be a big reason for wanting to make sure to get it right. Let's see. I can't wait for this. You have done amazing getting him again. He's in high demand. Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, Steve Moore is the best. The absolute best. We're all flawed. That's what makes us human. It's people who think they are flawless who make the worst decisions. I'd have to agree with that, Sharon. That's a good point. So, I'll probably get on with you guys when I get home after work. I do have to go in for a couple hours today. I have to run a few cameras at a certain site. Just got to install some cameras, and it should take me a few hours or so. So I should be home later on today. I'll do something for Friday night. Maybe I have to go over and look over at the other Mammoth-on hosts to make sure they're not planning anything for tonight. There's been a lot of lately. Every time it seems like I get ready to go live, it's like somebody else. I get a notification that somebody else was already, that somebody else is going live at the same time and stuff. So it's like there's been a lot of us talking right now. The chatter head leading into Mammoth-on here. So there's, don't want to step on anybody's toes is what I'm basically getting. I want all the new hosts to be able to, get up there and get recognized and get some exposure, obviously, and there's going to be a lot of good content, as we continue to talk with the hosts and everything. I know Andrew's going to have some pretty brilliant stuff. Millbilly, they're going to have some really special things for y'all to look forward to. Yeah, so Mr. Capaldi's putting together good things. Linda Kay's got a lot of interesting guests lined up. Sharon just recently got Sandra Lean, which is pretty exciting for those of you who have been following at all the Luke Mitchell case. So Sharon's going to be having Sandra Lean on, along with another YouTuber, Casbat. So Sharon's got some pretty interesting guests. Johnny Jack Smith's got some interesting guests. Aaron Moriarty, he's going to be having on. And from what I understand, another surprise guest that he's going to have be a surprise. So we'll have to see who that's going to be. So he's also going to be having, I believe, Adam Brazil on as well, who is an exoneree. So Johnny Ripper will be talking with him. So there's a lot of exciting things coming up this weekend, folks. I'm going to be talking with Dr. Silkman. Also, McGilla and Rule are going to be coming in to do McGilla's final segment about the tracking dogs. So we're gonna be doing basically a little brief recap of all that's gone before in the leading up to the final segment, and then we're gonna do basically McGilla's final segment. So we got that. I'm going to be speaking with a dog handler and his dog, Zoe. There's a lot of interesting stuff lined up for the Mammoth-on, folks. Tracy Strunzi is going to be talking to several exonerees. From I believe last time I checked, that list is getting pretty long, but she's got a lot of people, a lot of exonerees that you guys are going to be able to hear from firsthand. So, get excited. There's a lot of good content that's going to be coming at you next weekend. Sharon Sunshine, she's in the chat. And if I got it wrong, I'm pretty sure I maybe didn't say doctor, but it is Dr. Sandra Lean, yes, as Miss Sharon Sunshine said there. I may have forgotten to say doctor, so I apologize if I did. So that's where we're at. So lots of exciting content coming up, folks. So Mammoth-on is going to be a big deal. I am working on promos. Hopefully I should, if I get home early enough, I should be able to kind of finish up at least one of the promos. I do want to finish the supporters singing Truth Train as well, because I have been sent a few more clips from folks. So we are we're working towards making it a very exciting Mammoth-on for you guys, with a lot of interesting content. I'm actually I'm kind of talking to an exoneree myself. I haven't gotten the agreement from them yet, but hopefully if this person agrees, I think you guys will be pretty excited about it. So, okay, don't want to give too much away. That'll probably be my secret guest if I get that person to agree. So there you go. That'll be my surprise guest. So anyways, everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And I'm off to work so I can get home and get to work on more stuff for Mammoth-on. So, all right, guys.